A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Right now, I actually get to talk to one of my favourite young Australians. Nicholas Lay is the Northern Territory Director for the Australian Christian Lobby. He's based in Alice Springs, but long before Nicholas joined the ACL staff, he was working as a pilot, but even then, he and his wife Megan volunteered for the ACL. Nicholas is very smart, he's very approachable, and the politicians recognise him as a leader that people follow, and because they do that, they treat him accordingly. He speaks with truth, and he speaks that truth with clarity and kindness. You can tell I have huge respect for this young man, and so I'm so glad to have the opportunity to talk with him now. Welcome to the show, Nicholas.
Thanks, Wendy. Great to be with you. What an intro. Love it.
You and I could talk on and on, but regular listeners to 2020 will recall, I think, a conversation that I had last week with Amanda Ackman from Dying to Meet You. This is a Canadian movement, and it's pushing back against euthanasia, and instead it's promoting hope. Now, in that conversation, Amanda shared that it's been 9 years since euthanasia was legalised in Canada, and now, after that 9 years, it is currently their nation's fifth leading cause of death. 1 in 20 Canadians die by euthanasia. And as it is, I think, in our nation, Indigenous communities in Canada continue to oppose euthanasia, and that's despite, I would say, desperate efforts from their government to normalise the practice. But Nick, you are in the Northern Territory. You are in one of the highest populations of our Indigenous people in our nation. Tell us what's happening in the Northern Territory on this front, on this really important front.
Yeah, so has a long history in the Northern Territory, as you would know. I'm sure you were advocating against it back in the day. And there's been some recent developments on this front, largely from an independent pushing this in the Parliament through a motion. So it recently got sent to an inquiry. So we've just been through an inquiry process, which I was actually quite happy with the results of the interest and people engaging in that inquiry process. Like for the written submissions, we went through and did an analysis of them, and of individuals, not organisations, of individuals, we had 57% opposing the introduction. That's contrasting it with 42% support. So that's an incredible result, and really shows that the Northern Territory is passionately against this issue, and we don't want to see it here. And yeah, you touched on the Aboriginal people. This has been part of the conversation as well, and I went out to some remote communities and did some, I guess, information sessions and interviews with Aboriginal people, and it was great to hear from them. Those interviews are all online now, so people can check them out. But strong opposition, in my opinion, everywhere we went. And so not just from a biblical background, but also culturally, it's just taboo. It's not something they want to talk about or are interested in. So that was my conclusions of that all. And so that's kind of where we're sitting at the moment in the Northern Territory. And just to finalise that, out of the inquiry, unfortunately, the inquiry recommended legislating despite the significant opposition in the submissions. So that announcement was made last week. It still will be a conscience vote for members of Parliament, so hopefully they will vote against it still, but it certainly is progressing the issue here, unfortunately. They're saying around early 2026 we might see a bill for debate. So deeply devastating to hear that this issue is progressing, and I think it's actually going to do a lot of damage in the Northern Territory, and I think it's very unwise to do it here.
I remember the first time that this was raised in the Northern Territory, and as you say, we were opposing it back then. And I remember hearing stories from Indigenous people saying that if this came in, they would no longer travel to Alice Springs or Darwin for medical help because they would be afraid of what sort of medical help they would receive. Australians are usually pretty relaxed about politics, so well done on getting everybody to send in submissions to the inquiry, because that's an incredible result. 'Cause normally people who send in submissions to an inquiry, it means that they really care about an issue. So the ACL have really raised this issue to the extent that people understand what it means, understand the implications and the ramifications, I guess, of if it comes in. And so that part is over, but I'm sure there's more people can do, but we'll get to that. I wanted to know, particularly from you, this Northern Territory is the last frontier for euthanasia in our nation. There is still hope that we can hold out, and when that happens, then that seems to have a domino effect and people realise, well, we can actually say no. But if the Northern Territory are looking at euthanasia legislation, is it the same as other states and the territory of the ACT, or are we looking at a particularly different sort of legislation up there?
Yeah, unfortunately, with being the last frontier, that means that all the pro-VAD groups are very focused here and are very present here at the moment. So we're getting a lot of attention interstate and internationally from those groups. So they've been hard at work advocating, and I think in part they've been successful because the drafting of the legislation, in my opinion, it looks to the other jurisdictions in Australia and handpicks the worst parts of all of them and packages it into a bill. So if this passed the way it's being drafted, it would be the most radical in Australia. So that's deeply devastating. So I think there is lots of opportunity to have conversations about putting in protections so that we don't have those unintended consequences of coercion and people, going against their conscience. So, for example, they're suggesting no prognosis for a time frame for until your predicted time of death. So in other jurisdictions, they're around the 12 to 6 months. So no prognosis. So, you don't know when you're going to essentially pass away. So it's very broad in that sense. And the other major point is your suffering can be anticipated or expected. So you don't actually have to be suffering when you apply. So it's just that you expect that you could be suffering. I mean, we can all kind of expect that at some point. Suffering's pretty inevitable. So yeah, that's two major points. Yeah.
And certainly with no prognosis requirements, that actually really shocks me, because we're all on a pathway to our final death. Like every one of us, from the moment we were born, we were on that pathway. One of the concerns that I think we need to make sure that people realise too is how quickly this can accelerate. I talked very briefly about Canada, and people who were listening last week know a bit about Canada. But I'm in Queensland, and in Queensland we legalised euthanasia. It was less than 3 years ago we have legalised euthanasia, and already 3 Queenslanders die every single day from euthanasia. So it is a tragedy, and there's no doubt in my mind, and I'd like to know from you what the situation is in the Northern Territory. In my mind, there's no doubt that one of the reasons for the high number is that our governments refuse to adequately fund palliative care. When I was with you in ACL, one of the things we really pushed back on was back in 2023 when the New South Wales state budget was released, and in their state budget this is just in 2023, they had cut palliative care funding by $150 million, and at the same time in the same budget they had increased euthanasia funding by $97 million. And I just want people to really think that through, because of course euthanasia is a cheaper option than quality palliative care. But palliative care is one of the most amazing ways that we can show humanity and really care for every single human being. So in my mind, the high number is showing a lack in palliative care. what's the palliative care situation like in the Northern Territory? Do you have any information on that, Nick?
Yeah, so our palliative care, from what I understand, is amazing. Here we've got particularly services in Alice Springs and in Darwin. Now, it is limited in what it can do. You know, the Northern Territory is such a huge jurisdiction, many people living remote and don't have that access to palliative care. And the danger with legislating and being so liberal with it, legislating VAD, is that you're offering the option for people to end their life who don't have access to palliative care. So, you know, you could be living remote in a community and you don't have that intense palliative care service that can help with your suffering, with your pain. But you potentially can be offered this drug to end your life. And it's not really giving people an option. When you say you can either end your life or suffer, that's you know, indirect coercion. It's not giving people a choice. And so I really think euthanasia should stay completely out of the communities because they don't have the access to the palliative care. Like if the NT was to legislate confining it to Alice Springs and Darwin, where there actually is palliative care, to give people a better choice. And like you say, I think more can be done in a palliative care space in terms of providing more access, more services. And unfortunately with these conversations, when you're having these debates, it's like everyone's always like, yes, we're going to increase palliative care, but at the end of the day, they're just going to pass VAD and things will just continue as normal. But, you know, once that conversation is over, once that bill is passed, palliative care will just be forgotten about again.
They seem very determined. I can remember before you came on as the Northern Territory Director, I had some sort of oversight, a little bit of oversight of the Northern Territory as well. And I remember when we were talking about abortion legislation, which is another pro-life issue. And I remember that in Darwin, there were very few, if any, doctors who were prepared to actually perform abortions. And so they used to have really fly-in, fly-out medical practitioners who would come in on a certain day of the week and perform abortions in the Darwin Hospital. This was, like, it was shocking in one way, but I was sort of so pleased that there were so many doctors in the Northern Territory who were saying, no, we actually want to deliver babies, we don't want to kill babies. So what about the medical practitioners in the Northern Territory? Are they allowed to, let's say, use the word the conscientious objectors? Are they allowed to say, no, I won't be part of this? What's the situation for them? Is there training? Or, what's going to happen for doctors?
The current drafting is suggesting providing for conscientious objection for individuals and organisations, which is good. And in terms of that, I think that the legislation's good. The only part that concerns me around those provisions as they're written currently is that there is you will need to, if you conscientiously object, you would need to provide details of someone who can do it, refer on essentially. And I know for many conscientious objectors, many Christian medical professions, that would go against their conscience. And so I think that needs to be protected in this conversation if legislation were to progress, because it's not conscientious objection if you can't, completely, keep free of it. And I think with VAD in particular, we really should be seeing it as an alternate to healthcare, not genuine healthcare. If you're not happy with how palliative care is going or whatever, then you need to seek alternate arrangements. You shouldn't be bringing in the health system into this conversation. No,
totally agree. So because if you are a conscientious objector, you don't really want to have any part in it, even the referring on. I want to, before we have to finish up, I want to actually get to what people can do, because they've already really responded well. For anyone listening in the Northern Territory, Nicholas is one of the most amazing people of getting people on side because he's just so real. he and his wife Megan are incredible, and I really want to thank you, Nicholas, for being the real deal. But, you know, you'll be wanting to get people still involved. We haven't given up on this. So
That's right.
what can people do?
Yeah, so currently we've got a petition on the ACL's website. So you go to www.acl.org.au, click Take Action NT, and there's a petition against VAD. It's sitting around the 700 mark at the moment. We've got about 24 hours to finalise that petition, because we're planning to table it at an opportune time as this conversation is going on in Parliament. So really encourage those listening today, please just go on there, sign it. If we create enough noise, we get enough people on this petition, it'll again put the pressure on. Add to those submissions that also put the pressure on that we're not letting go of this issue, that we don't want it in the NT, and we think that it's going to be a terrible thing for the NT. So that would be my encouragement to listeners today. Please, sign that petition. It would be very helpful for us in the NT, even if you don't live here.
So people who don't live in the NT, we can still sign it?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's really good. So I really want to encourage everybody to do that. It's acl.org.au. And so they just go to what's happening in the NT. Just say that again for me.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Click the Take Action tab and then click NT. And there's 2 campaigns at the moment. So just click the petition against VAD, assisted suicide.
It really does make a difference when people sign these. I know some people say, petition, do they really take notice? Well, they do, because politicians are dependent on your vote to stay in or to get in. And so when a large group of people are making a sound about something, then they really do take note. I was up in Darwin just recently, and I was talking to Robin Lamley, who is one of the independent members, I think, of the Northern Territory, and she was commenting how effective ACL have been on a number of different issues across the Northern Territory. So, Nicholas, I just want to, again, thank you so much for the work you're doing. For people who want to stay up to date with politics from a Christian perspective, you really should be engaged with the Australian Christian Lobby. Go online, acl.org.au, find out what's happening in your neck of the woods, and while you're there, you can sign up to receive their fortnightly e-news email. It's very easy to read. It's full of important news. You can read it all, or you can click on the links that are either close at home or that interest you. Nicholas, thank you so much for your time today. I want you to please pass on my love to all the staff at the ACL. I miss being there with you, and I know that you know I mean it when I say Peter, my husband, and I continue to hold you all in the highest regard.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It's been lovely to touch base with you again, and thank you so much for the kind words, and really thank you for your leadership and helping me take up this role. So you're a big part of it, obviously. So thank you.
God bless you, Nicholas.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.